Well, hello and welcome to the channel. Glad you could join me in this episode of our continuing project of our P51B Mustang by Tamiya in 1/48 scale. Now this video will be part 4, and we'll be doing masking and painting and getting everything ready for assembly. As we take a look at our instructions, we've got quite a few parts that really need to be painted separately from the rest of the aircraft. So we got our wheels and our props and definitely our canopy, which we're going to need to mask off separately and get that ready. So we're going to go ahead and start by cutting all these parts off the sprues and trimming these up. I covered this in a previous video, but just as a refresher, I do cut these items off, leaving the sprue gates long. That way I can come in and very carefully trim off the excess hopefully without damaging the part. And this allows us the ability to get in real close, especially with a good pair of sprue nippers here. And we also want to trim off anything that we couldn't get with our nippers. Here, just rounding off the area where the sprue gate was attached. Also, going to scrape down any of these mold seam lines. We don't want those showing up after the paint, especially if you're going to use a panel liner to help accentuate, any areas that you want shadows and bring the detail of the part out. A bad panel line can take hold of those pigments, and we don't want that showing up. And then we're going to buff off anything that we can get to with our buffing stick and get everything cleaned up. So there is a seam line that runs around our tires here, and I'm just going to buff the seam line out. I'm not too worried about the tread portion. This aircraft being used, I imagine the tread would be wore down right around the circumference of the tire. So that's not a big issue for me. I know a lot of guys go and scribe all that back in. I'm not going to really worry about it. The next part we're going to look at is going to be our gun sight. And that goes right up on the dash above the instrument cluster. So we need to take care of this part. Now it is a clear part. So we're going to go ahead and trim that off or cut it off rather, off the sprue. And the next thing I want to do is test the fit before we get to painting on this little bitty item here. Hopefully I don't lose it. But it doesn't really fit right. And yeah, it's small. I keep dropping it. But once I do get it in its little slot there, you can see it doesn't set straight like it should. A little bit off on the molding on it. So the next thing we're going to have to do is go in and modify that to get it to set straight. So with a little bit of careful filing, I do get it adjusted, and yep, I've done lost it again. So, luckily it didn't hit the floor. I decided to go ahead and put this part on an alligator clip here to hold it securely, and I tested it to make sure that it wouldn't go flying away. So I do paint up the frame on it black. Using Vallejo black, and then it does have a cushion on it. We paint that with the German dark yellow. So now we need to prepare our canopy parts here. Carefully going to cut these off the sprue. And it's very important that you do the best you can and get these parts trimmed really close. We don't want to have to do a lot of sanding on these parts. Need to be real careful with that. And so here we've test fitted this. We want to make sure that these clear parts fit the model. And they look pretty good. So just a little bit more trimming on them and they'll be ready to go. Well, almost ready to go. Which leads us to the next step, which is going to be to mask off our canopy. Now I've never done this before, so this ought to be interesting. So this is my approach to doing it. You can buy masks for a lot of these kits. I think that there's one available for this kit. I got to be honest with you, I didn't check, but I decided I was going to do them myself anyway. So after putting the tape onto the clear part, I do go in and using this stainless steel dental pick and press in the corners. I want to have good adhesion here. I don't want any paint to seep up underneath our mask. That would not be good for our canopy. So there are different ways of doing this, I imagine, but this is the way that I've chosen to do it. And I am going to take this pencil here and just go over the edges of the masking tape. This will help define these areas where I need to cut along the edge of the frame for each of the window panes. Window panes, is that right? Well, close enough. We're building an aircraft, hillbilly. We're not building a house. But as you can see, the pencil is nice and rounded, so I'm not cutting into the mask, and it'll help me define that edge so that I know exactly where I need to put my hobby knife. So when you go to cut these, make sure that you got a brand new blade. That way you'll be able to easily cut the mask right into the corner where the glass or the clear part meets the frame. So luckily Tamiya has provided us with 3 different canopy options. So if you don't think you can stick the landing on your first mask job and you need a little practice, there are other clear parts that we can practice on. Kind of take it out for a test flight before we commit to the canopy that we're going to use on the aircraft. And then we should just be able to pull off the waist portion, and our mask is on. So I did take some fine copper wire and twist up some fine loops here, real small loops. Because after looking at the pictures and everything, we need to string an antenna from this antenna mast here to the tail section. So I drilled a couple of small holes just to accept the little loops that we've made. And we will take and super glue those into place. And also we're going to super glue in our gun sight, and you can see where we've attached these loops. Yeah, I wish I'd have thought of this earlier. It would have been easier. So next thing I want to do is I'm just going to take some air from our airbrush, and I'm going to blow out the fuselage as best I can. The thought here is that with what sanding and polishing that we've done on the plastic, taking care of the mold seams and the fuselage halves, that some of that might be inside the aircraft. And after we attach our canopy, we don't want these particles to come up and stick to the inside of that canopy. That would probably ruin the look of the model. So we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible. Just try to blow out everything we possibly can here. Also, we don't want any fingerprints inside the canopy, so I'm just going to take a cotton bud and we're just going to polish off the plastic here, clean up everything on the inside, make sure that we don't have any lingering finger marks. Pay close attention to it and be very careful not to touch the inside once you got it cleaned up. Now we're ready to use this clear parts cement and window maker by Testors. Now this stuff dries completely clear, and we do not have to worry about it fogging up our clear parts, which can happen if you're using like Tamiya Extra Thin or any other modeling glue. The vapors from it can really ruin the clear parts. So we're going to take and glue our clear parts into place and make sure that we give this plenty of time to dry. I let this set up overnight to make sure that everything was nice and dry. We don't want to be knocking these off or upsetting the alignment by fooling with the model after that. So next up, I do mask off around the wheel wells. That's so that we don't have any paint buildup excessively. So I'm going to use the Vallejo black and thin for my airbrush, of course. And we're going to come in and spray the wheel wells. And I also spray the canopy with this so that light doesn't come through. But as I think about it more, that might have been a mistake. I probably should have used the interior color on that. It's a little late now. We'll mark that down in our book for what to do next time. So for the wheel wells, we're going to use the cockpit color that we mixed up earlier in the series. Basil green and a couple of drops of this warm brown to kind of get that tone for the interior color. So with that sprayed, and make sure that you get a good coat on that. Want to make sure that you get into all the little areas. Also go in with this galvanized tin craft paint and paint the inside of our wheel well covers and also our landing struts. And with that all dry, it's time to go ahead and prep for doing our shading and pre-shading operation here. So we're going to remove all this masking tape that we have on the undercarriage. So I want to paint the wheel well covers here at the same time that we're painting the fuselage. So I'm going to use this blue stick putty and just roll off a couple of little round balls of it there and stick it into the wheel wells. And then I'm just going to press these covers into place. And this will hold it nice and secure so that we don't blow it off with the airbrush while we're trying to paint it. And we can just go ahead and press these covers into place. And the good thing about the blue stick is that we can easily remove these covers and it doesn't leave a residue behind. And we can just remove that later after we're done using it. So we're going to use this Dove Gray here for a base coat on our flaps and our radiator shutter and the fuselage of the aircraft. And that'll kind of give us our canvas for doing our pre-shading on. And once that dries, we're going to be using this gray acrylic paint here and also a stencil to do our pre-shading. So I've decided to pick out a section on our stencil here that kind of fits the scale in which we're modeling. So once I've decided on the area here, we're going to take and mask that off. So this is kind of an experiment for me for the finish of the aircraft, but we'll see how that works out. So here we're going to use the stencil and just spray over top of that. And try not to let the stencil hit the aircraft. We're going to kind of go for maybe a mottled spotted leopard look. That'll give us a little bit of color deviation here when we go to lay down the actual top coat color. So here we are with our leopard kind of spotty, splotchy pre-shading. It looks a mess, but that's okay. We use the same gray and we come in and we're going to do all of our panel lines. Now I don't get this quite as tight as I would like. Either I'm using too much air pressure or I'm just not too good at it yet, but that's why we do this, we practice. And don't forget to do the flaps as well, because our flaps are not attached at the moment, so we don't want to forget to go ahead and do our pre-shading on those. Now once that's all dry, we are ready to mask the fuselage for our first color, our first top coat color, I should say. So I am using this. This is Tamiya mask here, and I'm just masking out the bottom portion of the aircraft because I don't really want that lighter color to bleed over into our pre-shading. And I do mask for overspray on the top portion of the aircraft. Now Tamiya calls out a neutral gray, which is somewhere in between gray and white. So we're going to use heather gray here, mixed up for our airbrush, of course. And the consistency that I'm using here is a little bit thin, just a little bit on the thin side. I want to be able to slowly build up the opacity or opaqueness, one or the other, of the paint here. Just going to build it up in light layers. And what that's going to do is going to allow our pre-shading to kind of bleed through this top coat color. But you don't want to concentrate too much in one spot. Keep the airbrush moving. You've already done all the heavy lifting with the pre-shading. So all you got to do now is just kind of keep from messing that up. So we're just going to keep going over the aircraft until we get it to the right shade that we want. Now these acrylics really dry fast, so by the time you get done with one little area and you're moving to the next one, you'll be able to come back over top of it without having any real wait time. And as you can see here, you can see the pre-shading coming through our top coat, but it's not real heavy, so that's kind of what I was going for. And we got a little bit of deviation in the center of the panels from our spotted leopard approach. So on to the next step, which will be pulling these masks off. And we do have a little problem here. This masking tape really stuck to the paint, and we pulled off some of the paint here. Not to worry, we will come back in later and we will touch that up. I did not prime this aircraft before starting the paint. A lot of people say that you don't have to with acrylics, but as you can see here, you kind of do, I think. So, lesson learned. So let me know in the comments what you think the paint failure was here. I believe it was the lack of primer. So now I'll reverse the masking to protect the lighter color, the heather gray that we laid down, and prep it for our top coat. So I mixed up a top coat here using these acrylics. That's olive green, black, and yellow. I wanted the olive green to be a little bit darker, and I kind of got it too dark. So I used the yellow to lighten it back up. The yellow and black make olive drab. So this is Hillbilly Paint Chemistry 101. A dab of this and a dash of that. But yeah, I don't have any real ratios for it. It's just I mix it until it looks good to me. So we're doing the same process here with our mixed olive color. Just laying it down real thin and keep going over the aircraft until we get the opacity that we like. So for me, when using these darker colors, I have to be really careful not to totally obliterate our pre-shading. And the reason why we did all that pre-shading is so we can have some color variation showing through. So we don't want to get it to the point to where we don't see that anymore. Now with all that painting done, it's time to remove this mask from our radiator, which we put in there when we built the cockpit, if you saw that in the cockpit video. And also a little bit of CA glue here, super glue, and we're going to take and affix the air shutter, the flow shutter for the radiator. So now the aircraft's starting to come together for us. Now we can concentrate on some detail painting here. Now Tamiya instructions points out red, and it looks like it's pointing right here in inside these spokes, so I decided to drop in a little true red. That's also an acrylic craft paint. Not sure if that's what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's going to look good anyway. And I also bring up some bright yellow acrylic and paint the tips of our prop blades. So the base color here on the prop blades is the Vallejo black acrylic. In case I didn't mention that before, I'll let you know what color that is. And then on our landing struts, this is an enamel chrome. This is Model Masters chrome, which you can't get anymore, but it's a really nice color. Super shiny. I really like the looks of that. And we also come in with the Vallejo black and paint in our armament here. So these are the ends of the barrels of our 50 caliber machine guns. So there is a little bit of detail painting inside the wheel wells, a little chrome for that rod in the back, and then some flat black also. And I do take some acrylic silver and paint all of our landing lights and signal lights just that base color silver. Now once all that dries, I seal everything with this X22, thinned out just a little bit with the X20A. Then I come back in and I mask off and I paint the nose of the aircraft true red, as well as the back portion for our propeller. So that's true red and white on our spinner. And I do brush paint also the exhaust with acrylic rust. And we're going to do a little bit of weathering on that in the next video. So now we've got everything all set to go. Next up will be decals and weathering and I don't know, whatever else. Oh, you can see here also I did come in with silver and paint the rims, the wheels here. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, I'd like to give a shout out to Hibbo's Model Bench. Really good modeler. He does some really good work. I really enjoy watching his videos. So when you guys get a chance, head on over there here on YouTube and check out what Hibbo's got going on there. And a special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys and you wanting to see more videos that I keep making these. And leave me a comment. Let me know if I'm doing things right, doing them wrong, or just flapping in the wind. So we should be able to wrap this up in the next video, and you're not going to want to miss that. So if you are new to the channel and you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified as soon as I upload a new video. And with that, guys, you stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.